phone conversations, I learned so many things from the, people I talk to and from our conversations and things like that, that it gives me these concepts I call wisdom shots. And they're basically like little 5-hour energies, right? Little shots of something that are that you can expound upon, but they're designed to really give you a short little shot of something of information that can energize you or change you or stop you or start you into something, right? So just literally within the last probably 30 minutes, there was one that I'm going to start off with today, basically called etymology. So in all of our lives, one thing you learn in etymology is words matter. What you say matters, because you start to have an understanding of words that most people don't. So as a result, you start to be more careful, and you choose your words more wisely because you have an understanding of what they are and really what they mean. And you start to become more self-aware as far as what message are you trying to convey? What are you trying to say? And it makes you more aware of how you live as a result, because you just become more self-aware about what you're saying, what you're thinking. You start to really have a better understanding. And one of the first things in etymology you learn, when you learn the true meaning of words, you realize, one, they're not what you thought they were. And then you start to realize that what you thought they were, everyone else or most other people think they are as well. And so when you change your understanding of them, you also change your use of them. And one of the things you learn when that happens is you come into this conflict. It's not a negative thing, but it's almost a conflict. Like, should I use this word denotatively? Should I say what I know this really means, or should I use it in a way that everyone else understands it? And one of the things that we have to learn, and that you have to learn in the discipline of it, is you have to say what it really means. You have to use the word in its denotative context. D meaning mark and note, D meaning complete, and mark and note meaning mark. It means in its complete form, in its true complete use. Connotatively means how the word is just used in general society. So like if we went outside and like, oh, that's cold, that could mean 1,000 different things because it's connotative. We're using it within the context of a situation, but not in its actual technical right use. And one of the things that you'll find is that when you start having this, I don't want to use the word battle, but when you start having this should I or shouldn't I, you realize that you also have it physically. And what do I mean by that? You start to realize that you don't want to talk. When you use the real word, you realize you're one of the few that knows what the word really means, and you're talking to a person or a group of people who don't. So then you say, do I want to use it in its real context, or do I want to talk down? Meaning, do I want to give it at a level that it doesn't really mean, but that everyone else will understand? But the problem with that is if you start to realize that if you start using words out of their proper context or true meaning and definition in order to bring it down to people who can understand it, so to speak, the problem is that their understanding or their level of understanding is distorted. They don't have the true definition or understanding of what that word means. So as a result, you're going down to try to provide clarity, but there is no clarity at that level, because at that level it's distorted, right? So you start to say, should I go down to try to help? But you can't help if you're down. You have to help from up. So you start to realize that I can use this word to try to pull you up to where I am so you can see clearly like I do, or I can go down and use it like most other people use it, but now I'm down here in the distortion just like you. I'm down here in the mire, in the mud, in the ditch, just like you. So now it's the blind leading the blind. There's two people in a ditch instead of one person out of the ditch pulling the other person out. That's harder to do, and it can take longer. It's easier and quicker to go down in the ditch and sit there with somebody to understand, to be supportive. But how are two people in the ditch able to support one another? They can commiserate on their misery, right? They can say how bad this is and how much they don't like it, but neither one of them are in a position to help themselves or each other. So the person who's at the top of the ditch, who's able and willing to pull someone up, is able to be free and pull another person out in freedom. But that takes a little bit more. It takes a little more time. It takes a little more knowledge, wisdom, patience, and things like that. A little more courage, because you have to be willing to be, not as a martyr, but you have to be willing to be misunderstood to help people understand. Because what everyone else understands in general is not really the truth of much of anything. So this last weekend and yesterday, I tried to point some of that out in different things, that our understanding of something, just because we understand something doesn't mean what we understand is true. That is the truth. It's just something that we have been told long enough or heard long enough and has gotten to the point where we believe it. But there are a lot of beliefs we have that don't make them true. They're not true because we believe them. They become true in our lives because we believe them. They're truths that we live by, but that doesn't make them the truth. And so many conversations we have offline, so to speak, in our regular lives, you start to realize that there are people who are making a whole lot of decisions that they believe are true, but their lives show you they're not, because they're enslaved. They're caught by a whole lot of things: bad health, poverty, poor friendships, lack of employment or underemployment, insufficient employment. There's a whole lot of areas of life that we can be enslaved in when we don't know better, even if we believe something. So in etymology, you realize like there's a decision you have to make. Should I use this word as it is and realize that a lot of people don't really understand it, and I have to inform and educate them on it, and it may take a little more time, and it take a little more effort and strength, the ability to be, or willingness to be, misunderstood until they understand? Or should I go down here and use it? But just like the word, it's also life. What happens is you start to realize that you start to have to make the same distinction in living, that when someone calls you, are they calling to allow you to help them up, or are they calling to ask you to come on down? Come on down to the ditch. Come on down to the distortion. Lend me your ear so I can tell you how bad things are and how long they've been that way. And they're probably always going to be that way. But God will never put more on you than you can take, right? So you start to people are not actually asking you for your help up or for help up. They're asking you to come down. And just like in etymology, you start to realize, like, if I don't want to use this word improperly or inappropriately, I also don't want to do the same thing with my behavior. Meaning I can't come down there with you and start complaining. I can't come down there with you and start saying, yeah, it is hard out here. Yeah, it is tough out here. Yeah, oh man, isn't it cold? Yeah, man, right? It's people from that distortion, from that level of ignorance, that lack of knowledge and awareness and understanding of the truth of something. Just like that word, people use it connotatively. There's also a connotative lifestyle. There's a general way of living, right, that is distorted because of a lack of knowledge of either what a word means or how a mind functions, right? And so we have to start making the distinction and the difference in order to say, because I want to live a certain level of life, then we get into etymology, or we get into learning how to think. We start getting into higher levels of thought and higher levels of understanding that provide clarity. If for those who don't, then they're down a little bit lower and they're more in the distorted level. So everything is darker, colder, harder because of a lack of knowledge. No one can be free, right? So what we have to decide on a regular basis is, do we want to get down to the level where everyone understands, but no one can actually help each other at that level? No one can actually do anything for each other at that level. At that level, people are only doing something to each other, whether it's fighting, rioting, looting, wars. At certain levels of thought, there's nothing to offer to be gained. Everybody's running from where they live, right? Because there's nothing to be gained here. But a lot of times in people's misunderstanding or lack of understanding, when they call you, they want you to come down. When you are speaking, they want you to come down. But the problem with down is there's no truth there. There's all distortion there. That's why no one wants to live there. Everybody would like to get out, right? But it takes effort to get out. It takes effort to change what you think. It takes effort to change what you say. It takes effort to know what to think or how to think, or to know what to say. So in this little wisdom shot, right, called etymology, it's the understanding that coming down with you is not in either of our best interests. It will take some time, some effort, some energy, the willingness to be misunderstood until someone understands. But coming down the ditch with you is not going to help you. Saying this word because it's the way you understand it is not going to help you, not long term, right? And so, in order to best help, we can give our ear and say, okay, I heard what you said. Now what can we do? Right? So say, okay, I can pull you up. I got your hand. I heard what you said. So I grabbed your hand. And now it's time to go up. I'm not grabbing your hand for you to pull me down the ditch. I'm not grabbing your hand to misuse this word. So now we're both operating in distortion. Or I'm not grabbing your hand to come down the ditch with you. So now we're both in the ditch, in the dark, right? Trying to be friends and trying to be nice and be good and be kind. That's not the way it works. Poor people can't help poor people. Everybody only has what they have, whether it's poverty of mind or poverty in the hand. It's a lack of something for yourself, so you don't have it to offer other people. We're not talking about morals and ethics. We're not saying bad or good people, but we're talking about bad or good outcomes. Meaning, do we want to live that way? Do we want the experience of that thing? Is that how we want to live? And so a lot of times in the interest or the pseudo getting along belief, we try to get along by going down. And going down, no one gets along going down. There's nothing there to offer anyone going down. So freedom is up. We have to pull up. And so that means we have to be willing to, when people call, we have to be willing to listen. Yes, give a listening ear, but for how long and about what? And to what extent? Right? At some point, okay, we have to get up. At some point, I have to pull you up. And so just like whether it's the words we use or the life we live, we have to be willing to say, there's only so much of that I can do, right? And I'm willing to do, or that's good for me or you and I, right? So that's a very interesting, it's a very interesting thought to come to. So today we're going to be talking a lot more about these type of things, surface level, street level type of things. Like I said, not necessarily a lower level, but just different, so that we understand how to apply what it is we're talking about. So there's a quote right here that I have it says, because I have vision, I have life, right? Because I have vision, I have life. Well, what is the difference between vision and sight? What is the difference between vision and sight? So does anybody want to take a guess? What is the difference between vision and sight?
I'll take a shot at it.
Yes, sir. Perfect.
So I would say the difference between vision and sight is sight is just more surface type of like a glance at something, versus vision is having deeper thought, foresight, because you're looking more down the road for a purpose or objective.
Pretty good. So where is foresight? You said foresight. So you're saying foresight separate from sight. Where is foresight? Where is sight then, and where is foresight? Right? Sight and then foresight. Where do these reside? If they're not the same thing, where is sight and where is foresight?
I think foresight would be within you, more of in the mind, more mental, versus sight being the body. I would almost suggest that it is Um, one is esoteric versus one is exoteric.
Okay, that's pretty good. Anyone else? Before I expound, anyone else? Okay, so yes, that's pretty good. Sight. Sight is a human faculty. It's part of your five senses. It is external. It is human. It is external, right? Sight. It means you can only see what is. Sight is not creative. It's just expressive. The human body is not creative, it's expressive. A tractor is not creative, it's expressive. The operator of the tractor decides what the tractor does. It's expressing its desire through this machinery. The machinery itself is not self-expressing. It doesn't just turn on its own and start digging and turning around and deciding where it goes or how much to pick up. The body is just like that tractor in that sense. It is a machine that the user, our true self, right, our consciousness, our I amness, uses in order to express itself. So sight is not foresight. We'll get to that in a second. It's not foresight. It's not able to say what's going to happen 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now, what's around that corner. So sight is limiting in the sense of it's not a limited faculty. It's only designed to be used a certain way, like a scoreboard at a game. The scoreboard just tells you what the score is. It doesn't tell you who scored first. It doesn't tell you as far as the person. It doesn't tell you who scored first, who scored last, who's going to score next. It only tells you who scored, right? It only keeps track of activity, but it's not expressive. It's not self-expressing. It just keeps track. It keeps track of the self-expressor, of the individual, of the living thing, the living being. So our physical body is not creative. It's only like sight. It's only expressive. It only expresses what the user is doing, thinking, feeling, right? Foresight, right, is consciousness, right? That is what people call our I am, right? Or people call God, or whatever other word they use. Consciousness knows where everything is. Consciousness is not limited, right? God is everywhere, let's just say. Our consciousness, our I amness is everywhere, right? It's not limited into a body. It's in this body right now. That's what makes the body alive, but it's not limited to the body. So it can see everything. That's where dreams come from, desires come from, the things we've been talking about in the last, yesterday especially, maybe a little last weekend. But that is the part of you that knows everything, that sees everything. That's why our human self, our persona, the name of our body, whatever our name is, right? Lucky, Marcus, Hope, Kelly, whomever else, right? Those are just the names of the body we have, but the body is limited, right? So when our true self, when our consciousness comes to our persona, right, it says, I can see everything. And this person says, well, I can only see this. So when this part of ourselves that sees everything, it has a vision, it has an expansive view of something. So when it tries to tell us, hey, like yesterday, hey, Virgin Mary, I want you to have a son. Our sight, our persona, our limited physical experience says, how am I going to do that? I can only, I don't have, I won't have. We're only talking about the score now. We're only talking about what we see, right? But our true self has vision, right? Our spirit, right? Internally, foresight is an internal thing. It's vision. It's the ability, it's our true self's ability to see everything, right? So what happens is there's a quote in the book where it says, my people perish for a lack of vision, not a lack of sight, a lack of vision. Vision is the ability to see something. It's your true self's ability to see what exists that our human mind or our physical sight cannot, because sight is not creative. It's only expressive. It only says what it is. Vision says what it is and what it can be in your world, but it is whether you believe it or see it or not, but you just won't experience it if you're unable to actually imagine it. So what we would call, right, what it calls vision, or in the human mind, we would call imagination, right? We would say we're imagining. We're seeing something in our mind internally that doesn't exist physically, but we can see it clear as day on the inside. We can see it as clear as day, right? And if you look at anything that we are talking on, listening on, using right now, typing, wearing, it doesn't matter what you can think of. Look around your room where you are. Look at what you're wearing. Look at anything that you can see or feel or anything. It first started in imagination. So in the metaphysical world, in the world of mind science, the world of people who know how to use the mind and what it really is and all that stuff, they have a saying, imagination. I know you guys probably can't see it, but you can hear me. It's okay. Imagination creates reality. Imagination creates reality. So the reality, what we call reality is expressive, when we can see it, taste it, touch it, smell it, when it comes to our five senses. But in order for it to come to our five senses, it had to exist. We had to have something that said, this is real and true, I can see it, right? So then we hop into the tractor of our mind and we start physically putting together this thing that already exists in our mind, right? That is vision. In the human faculty, that's imagination. That is foresight. Without the ability to see something in our mind differently than just the faculty of sight, without the ability to say, I create because I can see something and say, wow, I want to build that, even though I don't see it right now, I can see it in my mind. And so I can use my body, my tractor, so to speak, and start putting together this thing physically. I can start to physically express that which already exists in my mind. Imagination is creating the reality that we physically experience. Our physical world doesn't create anything. It's created by the creator. And the creator, no matter what we want to name it, consciousness, God, universe, is invisible. So the invisible, another way of saying it, the invisible creates the visible. So everything that we see with our five sense world, taste, touch, smell, all that stuff, was first created by something we don't see. What we don't see is the only creative faculty. Everything we do see is only the expressive faculty. Creation lies within, it's expressed without. So, you know, people say, oh, I'll believe it when I see it. That's technically incorrect. And if we were to think about it, we would know it was incorrect. But we're so used to seeing it, and that's where we get into etymology, or we get into thinking, or we get into a certain way of living. You start to realize you can't just say anything because everyone says it, or because everyone knows what they mean when they say that. Because you start to live a life of distortion, you start to actually believe it. Well, I'll believe it when I see it. And it's like, well, so think about it in another way. The person who created the first of anything, what could they have? What sight did they have to do that? The first person who created an airplane, where did they get that idea from? What were they copying? The first person who created a cell phone, what were they copying? If you were the first person to do it, it did not exist in the physical world before you. So you're the inventor, let's say. How did you do it? If you believe it when you see it, if there's nothing to see, then what are you actually inventing? Where did you get that from? And so if you actually think about it, you start to realize that everything that is actually created, like what we call in reality, that's experienced or expressed in reality, comes from inside, imagining, from vision. It is your consciousness, it's your God's faculty. It's the faculty, God can see everything. We're using the word in the old connotative way, right? We're saying the God of the universe, the God that everybody prays to. I am. People call it a whole bunch of stuff. It doesn't matter what you even call it, but it only matters what you call it, and to understand that that's you. That word, whatever word you want to use, that is what your true being is. That is what is powering your body. Your body is not self-powered any more than your car, any more than a tractor, any more than a house. Anything that cannot create itself is not self-sustaining. So your house, if you don't take care of it, it'll fall apart. Your car, if you don't take care of it, it'll fall apart. It can't take care of itself. We have the ability to take care of ourselves. Animals do to a certain extent, not as much as we do, but to a certain extent, right? And then it goes down, 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 down from there, so to speak, right? But inanimate objects, objects with no breathing, with no life in them, cannot take care of themselves, right? Our body cannot take care of themselves. That's why at the beginning of the book, said God created man and woman and breathed life into them. So they became a spirit, spirit-giving entity. The breath of life came in. That is what life is, breath, inspire from the inside, right? That's where everything comes from, the inside, right? So to imagine, to envision is the creative faculty. That's where that's where everything you see and that we taste and touch in the physical world came from. So without this ability to have vision, that's why it says, for a lack of vision, my people perish. For the inability, because of the inability to be able to see in our mind something different than what our physical limited sight gives us, we are stuck with only what we can see. Let's say it like that. We're stuck with what we can see. Right? Put that up here so we can see. We are, let's say, limited by what mechanism we use to see. We are limited by what mechanism we use to see. What does that mean? What does that mean to someone? We are limited by whatever mechanism we use to see. What does that mean to someone? Who's willing to take a shot at it? We are limited by the mechanism we use to see. Anybody want to take a shot at that? So essentially what this means is if we use vision or if we use sight. Sight is limited. We can't see around the corner. We can't see down the street. We don't know who we're going to walk into at the grocery store. Sight is only keeping score. It's only telling us what's in front of us right now, what we can see. We can't see what's going to happen at 3 o'clock later today. We can't see. If we want to use any of those faculties as far as to see something that we cannot see, we have to now imagine. Hey, if I said, hey, Hope, what's going to happen? What's going to happen at 3 o'clock? We can guess, but we can't see 3 o'clock. What's happening? It's not 3 o'clock yet. So now we're having to imagine. We're having to guess. We're having to use another faculty in order to say what could be, because we're not talking about what is. Sight only talks about what is. It doesn't talk about what things can be. So if we use sight, sight is a perfect faculty. There's nothing wrong with it, but we have to know how to use it. It's limited to the ability, right? It's full responsibility. So it's not limited as in lack of power, but it only goes like a boundary, right? There's a boundary, and it goes all the way up to whatever is in range that I can see. Sight is also understanding. Whatever I can understand, that is what I'm limited to. I can go all the way up to that, right? Vision is the faculty that says, I can't see it, but I can imagine it. I can see it from the inside. I can see Las Vegas. Even though when the mobsters from the East Coast who came to the West to build Vegas, it was nothing. If you go now, even with all the casinos and all the fun, it's nothing but a whole bunch of dirt. And it's hot in the summer and it's cold in the winter. Freezing in the winter, literally freezing. And it's literally hot in the winter. I mean, in the summer. And in between, it's pretty much hot, right? So, but vision is what allowed them to build an entire city that is almost everyone's playground, especially adults, for sure. But kids are there playing travel basketball and baseball and softball and all kind of things too. So everybody, it's like everyone's state of Disneyland. It's like Disneyland is a whole state almost, or a city full of Disneyland, right? But the people who built that, it was dirt. They could not see it. Sight would not suffice. It wouldn't be enough to make them believe this could be real or possible. Vision shows you what exists all the way around that you can bring into your sight world. All sight is the outcome of vision, no matter what you're looking at. All sight is the outcome of vision. So vision is always creating sight. Sight never creates vision. Vision always creates sight. There is no option. This is not optional. This isn't if you're positive thinking. This isn't if you're conscious. This isn't, no, this is if you're conscious as far as alive. We're not talking about how high in the mind you're working. We're talking about if you're just alive. If you're alive, all vision creates sight. All imagination creates reality. There is no exception. It doesn't work the other way. Right? Because vision, it just lets you know that everything already exists. In this world, everything already exists. If you think about it physically, right? Everything that we use to create something in this world already exists. It's already here on this planet. So if you go inside to get diamonds or gold or oil or silver, you're going into the earth. If you're cutting down trees for lumber, if you're using things to get steel, it's already here on the earth. It's already created. It already exists. But depending on what it is you're trying to use or build in life, you go looking for the thing that already exists. There's nothing, we're not using anything from Mars, from Venus, Jupiter. We're not using anything from an external world to live here. We're not using anything from an external world to live here. We're only using what's here. And what's here is always within. It's always here and here. Heart and mind. It's always here. Right? So now that's to express that we're not trying to do anything new. What we're learning is how to choose what we're doing. What we're learning is to become the adult of our own lives. You know, when we used to go to the grocery store with our parents and they used to buy things and we used to be, pointing at things, or as we get older, we say, Mom, Dad, can I have this? Or whatever else it is. We're having the same experience. But since we're younger, we don't get control of the whole experience. We don't get to decide when we go, how long we go. We don't get to decide what we buy or don't buy. We can ask, we can hope, right? But doesn't really, we're not in control of that experience. As we get older and we go to the grocery store now, at our ages, we're doing the same things that we did when we were with our parents. But now we're the adults. So now we're in control of our experience. So we're not doing something different. We're just having a different experience because we have matured. Right? Sight, when people are limited by sight, when they say, oh, I'll believe it when I see it, that is basically the immature us. It's the undeveloped us. It's the inability to be able to experience life on a certain level because we don't have the mental faculty or the mental faculty or aptitude, meaning not aptitude, but the mental faculty. We're not aware of something. So it makes us incapable. We're not in the driver's seat. So when we're limited by sight, if all we can live is what we see, well, why do you think poor people stay poor? Why do you think rich people stay rich? It's not just all scheming and scamming or stupidity and laziness. No, it's because we are constantly motivated by what's around us in order to keep it. That's an easy faculty. It's easy to stay as we are because as we are is largely influenced by everything around us. So that's why most people make within about 15% of what their parents make. Most people only don't live more than 10 miles from where they grew up. And I'm saying large percentages. I'm not talking about 20%. I'm talking like over 60. Because we don't change as much as we think we do, or as much as we can. Because our sight really does govern what we believe ourselves to be, all of our thoughts, our beliefs, because they're just constantly reinforced. But it's like getting on a roller coaster. We don't have to work the roller coaster. We just have to decide whether we want to get on it. It's going to take us. So we have to decide what type of ride we want. And in order to do that, we have to start thinking, we have to start making decisions. I want to get on this one and not that one. This one goes too fast or goes too high. This one goes too slow. This one goes through water. That way we can start choosing our experiences. And most of us are just on roller coasters. We've got on one and we haven't got off. So we're in the same neighborhoods. We have the same friends. We don't really change. Humanity doesn't change as much as they like to think. Oh, we can change. We can be. Most people don't. Most people don't change that much because it's not absolutely necessary. Age is going from a child. That's not change. That's involuntary. You don't have a say on whether you go from 8 to 10 as long as you're alive. You don't have a say on whether you get taller as long as you're alive. You don't have a say. But the things we have a say on, that is what actually creates change. And most of us are not awake enough. We're limited by our sight, so we don't use our power. We're not inspired to change. Right? So change is something that has to be done. It has to be a conscious effort, a conscious intention. We have to give it our conscious attention. It has to be something we desire to do. It doesn't just happen on its own. Now, there are a lot of influences but even the influences can't make us change. We can have an influence and go to jail. A lot of times people will change because that influenced them to say, whoa, it wakes them up. Like I said yesterday, you don't have to have your eyes closed to be asleep. So a lot of time influences change us. Something that happens to us changes us. Right? And usually they say after 35, really only something catastrophic kind of happens. So you have a heart attack, or you lose your job, or you get really sick, or something happens. Otherwise, most people never change. They're pretty much the same version of themselves. When we're younger, we change a lot because we don't know what we are, where we are, how we are. So we're figuring everything out. But once we get past what they say about 35, everything pretty much slows down for most people. People are pretty much what they're going to be. Earlier than that, but the 35 also takes into account you move for a job, you get married, you have kids. So some of that also changes not just you as the person, but it creates other responsibilities in life. So you move a little bit, you have kids, so it changes your life a little bit. You get married, changes your life a little bit. You move to have a job while you're still kind of going up that scale. But once you get to about 35, they say, right, studies say that you don't change all that much. So in order to change, that has to be a conscious effort. It has to be a conscious effort to change. We have to desire to change. It's not something that's just going to happen on its own. Right? So vision is our inner ability to see what is possible and exists. That's where the Latin word, right? I think it's inventio. You can't see it right now. Inventio. It means that's where the word invention comes from. And what that means, the word means, and you guys can look it up, the word means to stumble upon. It doesn't mean to create. It means to stumble upon. So what happens is when we have an idea for an invention, it means the light came on. We were walking around and we ran into something in our mind. The light came on. The thing was already here, but in the dark, we can't see. Right? So when you see somebody in a room and and they're fumbling around and rummaging around, you're like, man, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, I'm looking for my keys in my wallet. Well, what would we say? What's the first thing we would say? Man, turn on the light. You can find something with some light in 10 seconds that's going to take you 5 years in this room to find in the dark. Right? It's always, let's see if I can put that here. Oh, let me raise it a little bit. It's always We should always have light before labor. Most people are just laboring. They're good people. They work hard. They go to church. They donate. They to charity. They do bake sales, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, Parent of the Year. They're at all the parent-teacher conferences. Everybody's assisting the homeless and the this or that, right? Everybody is laboring. And so they're trying to get to heaven, meaning they're trying to have a great experience in life by laboring, right? They're working hard. They're doing their best. But very few people turn the light on. That's what we're here to do. We're turning the light on so that we can work more wisely, more skillfully, more deftly, right? We're just rummaging around. And then we wonder why we become weary in well-doing. We wonder why we get tired of doing good. So we start to say to ourselves, well, what's the point? Well, only the rich people get it. Well, only the thieves get it. Well, only these people get it and these people get it. And how come when we work hard, we don't ever get anything? Well, what's the point? Well, it's because we're rummaging, we're laboring, right? That to me is my definition of grinding. It's just effort without labor. I mean, labor without a plan. I'm sorry, labor without a plan. We're just out here just going at it, just going for it. And we're saying, well, if we do it long enough, hard enough, something will crack. Something will happen. And it's like, well, if we just get in the car and start driving, if we just drive long enough, we'll find what we're looking for. Really? Does anybody? So we just made maps for no reason now. North, south, east, and west don't matter at all now. We're just gonna get in the car and just start rolling. Like there's certain, if we apply that same thought process to another area of life, we would see how silly it is. But a lot of times we have this thought in this area of life. And so since we're used to thinking this thought about this thing, we think it makes sense. But it doesn't make sense, it just makes habit. It just means we're accustomed to this thought. So we've conditioned for it to make sense. We've conditioned it to make sense. Right? So if you saw 2 3-year-olds in a daycare lining up from each other and just ramming each other, we'd be like, stop, what are you doing? Stop, why are you doing that? But it makes sense if we call it football. It's not necessarily that one is better than the other, we're just used to seeing one. But in one, we're not used to seeing it, so we'll stop it. And the other one, we're gonna have a Super Bowl party later today. Not me personally, but as humans, we're going to have a Super Bowl party. My youngest brother's at the Super Bowl. So it makes sense because we're used to seeing it. But these 3-year-olds doing it, we'd stop it. Right? So the point is that everything we're doing doesn't always make sense the way we think it is. A lot of it just makes habit. It becomes normalized through habitual practice. It doesn't mean it's actually normal. I'm not saying football isn't normal. I'm just saying things that we see. And one thing we'd stop at, the other one we'd let it go. But it's not because either one of them's good or bad or right or wrong. We're just used to seeing something. So we'll accept it in one way, but the same action we won't accept in the other. Right? So what we have to understand here, right? When we're living, we want to have light. Turn the light on. Awareness is another word for that. Probably can't see it, doesn't matter, you can hear it. Awareness. I guess you can't see it. Maybe I need to write more clearly. I blame somebody beside me. I have to figure out who I'm gonna blame, but it's not my fault. Right? So awareness. We have to become aware with our labor so that our labor is informed. Why do you think they give us manuals when we buy a TV? Or they give us a car owner's manual when we buy a car? Just when you're trying to figure out is inefficient. And then there'll be so many things you didn't know about the car or about the TV, or you didn't know you could do, or you didn't know how it worked, or you're missing out on things that you didn't even know existed, right? Because the manual gives light. It awakens our awareness. It lets us know something exists. Well, that's what vision is. It lets us know something exists. We can't see it right now, but just because we can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We just can't see it, but we can only see what we're aware of. Awareness is a consciousness. It's a level of consciousness. That's what an invention means. It means now our level of awareness spiked. So we ran into something. That thing that we ran into already existed. Otherwise, we couldn't run into it. The actual definition means to stumble upon, to trip over, to stumble upon. Just like if you're walking in a dark room and you walked and you kicked something or ran into something, same thing. So because you ran into something that you didn't know was there, but just because you didn't know it was there doesn't mean it wasn't. You just didn't know. So vision allows you to see when you have light, when you become enlightened, right? Enlightened, when you become aware on the inside, enlightened, when you become illumined, means to light up from the inside. When you become enlightened, when you can envision, when you can imagine, when you become illumined, when you become informed, right? It comes from the inside out. That's why they also say in, conscious world, right? They say as above, so below. As within, so without. Above and within are the same. Above and within are the same. Below and without are the same. Below and without are the same. Above and within are the same. Everything comes from above and within. The above and within are the creative faculties. Without, outside, and below are the expressive faculties. They are what happened after things were created above and within. Above, right? Why do you think everybody likes to be in charge? Who's making decisions at the bottom? At the below, who's making decisions? What do they say? Stuff rolls downhill. We've all had jobs in life and we wanted to say something or be something and our boss said no. The below doesn't get to make the decisions that the above gets to make. The below is the expressive faculty, right? The below, right? Above and within are the creators. That's the creative faculty, above and within. Below and without is what is expressed from the from the above and within. So the people you see working are following the plan of the above and the within. The people making the plans, the above and within, right, are in and above. They're inside, you outside. They're above, you're below. You have to listen to them. You have to be outside, they're inside. Right? So all the generals, Joe Biden is the commander in chief. He makes a decision whether we go to war or not. So we're doing the whole Ukraine thing now. Cool. But above and within, above, he made a decision and he's within the White House, while the people who are below, the soldiers, are without, they're outside. They're the ones getting shot at. They're the ones in the war. He's not in the war because he's the one in charge. So he's always going to put what he's in charge of out there to express himself. So when we're driving our car and it's raining, since we're the above, we're within. We're inside the car. The car is the below. It's what we got into. And the car is outside. It's the one getting rained on. Right? So we have to understand not only what the difference between vision and sight is, but the order. Vision always creates sight. Just like imagination always creates reality. Imagination is reality. What we call reality cannot be any more real than the thing that created it. So if we call this reality and somebody gave it to you, if it just comes into your hand now, if it's something that you could put together, but it was based on a plan that you had before it was together, well, then the plan existed before what you had in your hand. So if you call whatever's in your hand real, then what do you call the idea that created it? If the child is real, are they more real than the parent? Because the parent, what a parent is before a parent, they're a person. So if a person became a parent, that means they had a child. Well, the child only came after this person became a parent. So that means the person can exist without being a parent, but the child can't exist before this person became a parent. So parent comes before child because parent is a person. And so they can exist whether they become a parent or not, because they're a person. This child that became a person only became that after the parenting. So not only what exists, but the order in which it exists matters. Right? So we're talking about order of operations. Right? Just like in math, order of operations. Just like math. Right? So all of these things matter in and of themselves, and they also matter in what order we understand so that we can apply. We can apply what it is we know and in what order that it needs to be applied. Right? So vision. Vision is something we all have. It's something that we're all using, and what we're learning or remembering, what I'm reminding you all of, what I'm facilitating the thought of or in or about is, if we limit ourselves by sight, if we only believe what we can see, if we only think what we can see, if we only do what we can see, we are going to be stuck by that. We will never get out of what we see, because sight doesn't change anything. Sight is only expressed. Sight doesn't change anything. So the only thing that changes something is vision. It's the ability to see in your mind what could be. That's what a desire is. That's what a dream is. Those things come from within and above. Sight is below and without. It's only expressive. So anytime we want to change our life, we have to imagine. We have to envision. We have to, I'm not saying you got to sit down, and that's not what I mean. It just means in your thought, in your mind, you imagine, you ask yourself a question. A good way to start that is ask yourself a question. What if I could? What if this happened? Or what if I could be this or do that or have this or have that? What if I could? What if I could? I have some people that I work with, and I started them on a 30-day challenge with that. On what if. I said, what I want you to do is, I want you to imagine something, you being something or doing something and having something. So for the next 30 days, I told them, I want you to imagine what could be in your life. What could be? I want you to guys to imagine, I want you to think, what could be? What could I have? What could I have? What would, if I could be, if I could be this or have this? I said, I want you to imagine something that's so ridiculous that there's no way you could have it in 30 days. That it's literally impossible. But I want you to imagine it anyway. I said, because I want you to see what happens when you start consciously, meaning purposely, focus your mind on something. You're not begging for it. You're not asking for it. It's not something that you could physically make happen. So you're not even trying to come up with a plan for it in your own mind. It's literally impossible. So now what you're doing is you're ruling out sight. You're ruling out a plan. You're ruling that out. It's not what you're using now. That's not what you're using now. Now what you're using is vision. Now what's going to kick in is this now, but kick in purposely. You're now turning it, you're not just imagining wildly, right? You are purposely imagining. You're saying, I'm now going to turn this on by the question of, what if I could? What if I could be this? What if I could have that? I have no way of making it happen, so I don't even have to worry about it. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to consistently ask myself, wow, what if I could have that? And then what starts happening, what people realize starts happening is they start getting, ideas start coming, but they start coming. They're not things you would think about. You start to actually feel like how you would feel if you had that. You actually start to think like the thoughts you have. But they're not things, they're not sight, they're not a plan. They're not things you're sitting around trying to figure it out. That's why the challenge was done that way. because I wanted people to understand. I wanted the people to understand what happens when you eliminate sight, plan, the mind, the human mind, and you actually start using your God mind, your actual God faculty, the ability to vision, to envision, to imagine, right? To say, I wonder if at the beginning it said the world was dark, right? The world was dark. And God, the highest level of thought, said, let there be light. Let there be light. There was not light before it. So that means it wasn't something that was copied. That's why when you use your imagination, when you envision when you come up with something, even though it may be in the same realm or same commodity or whatever else it is, it's unique to you because you are unique. So you have a unique mind. It's individualized. So it's going to give you an idea that other people don't have, whether it's what it is or how it works or how whatever else it is. It is a reflection of your mind. And your mind, what makes us different than from each other is our mind. It's not our color, it's not our gender, it's not our race. There's no color, gender, race, that's all the same, that acts the same, that lives the same, that has the same money, success, health, length of life, none of it. What makes us truly different is our mind, is our identity, our persona, right? We talked about that yesterday, that Latin word persona, it means mask or character. So Denzel is a person, but he has a mask or character, the role he's playing, right? We are the I am, we are God, the consciousness. And we have a persona, right? They have a persona or a character, which we call, which is what we call ourselves, whatever we name ourselves, that's the persona or the character that I am is playing. So Denzel, right, is the I am in this analogy, right? Is the I am. The persona or the character is the role he's playing in the movie. That's all that is, right? So we the I am are playing a role in this, in our life. We're playing a role in the movie of our life. Right? That's why also people will say, this type of thinking, people will say, all the world's a stage. It's a play. It's a big play with everybody in it. And everybody is their own character. And everybody's able to write their own script on how they want called their life. Right? So we're only playing a role. I am, right? What people call God, consciousness is only playing a role, believing itself to be John, Joe, Marcus, Kelly, Hope, Veronica, Lucky, it doesn't matter. Right? We're believing ourselves to be this persona, this character, just like we believe Denzel to be whatever he's playing in that movie. And we're sitting there attentively and focused, even though we know it's not real. For those 2 hours, he's so good at it, he's so one with it, we forgot it's him for a minute. That's what we've done. We are so one with this persona right now in life that we think that's who we are. But the goal is to, as we awaken, as we rise in consciousness, as we become enlightened, right? And we start to remember, we wake up and remember who we are. And we realize we are the I am. We're just playing this. So now as a result, we are the owner of the car, so we drive it wherever we want it to drive it. We are the owner of the tractor, so we make it do whatever we want it to do. And we realize it's not in control. We're in control. Our life is not in control of us. We're in control, but it will feel like life is in control of us if we don't control it. If we put a 5-year-old in that tractor, the 5-year-old won't be in control. The 5-year-old won't be in control of the car. But the car is not designed to have control of the driver. So therefore, they're both out of control. Right? And so our mind is not designed to be in control of us. Our body's not designed to be in control of us. But if we don't control it, it will control us. It will just act up and act out. So that's what disease is, right? That's what disease is. Physical disease comes from first, because remember, this is an effect. You can only see it or feel it, taste it, touch it in the physical world once it's there. So that means it's secondary. Secondary means it's not first. It is not first. It's what we see. And since most of us don't understand the order of operations psychologically the way we do in math, we think because we see it that it just got here. Oh, this must just be what it is. We think it's first. We think it's the cause, and we mislabel it. It's not. All physical disease, all of it. There is no, just like there's nothing physical that wasn't first mental, there's nothing physical disease. Disease is physical, right? Just like it affects your physical world, just like a car is physical. It affects your physical world. All things physical are effect. They're secondary. They are brought into existence, an invention, right? They are brought into existence by, in this case, physical disease, right? By the mind, by imagination. By all physical disease is caused first by mental dis-ease. Dis-ease. Mental dis-ease. It means in our mind has been separated from ease. Our mind has been detached from ease, from peace, from tranquility, from soundness, from wholeness. So if our mind is the creative faculty and it has been separated from ease, it's like a child that's lost at the grocery store. What happens? Do you see how they act when they're 4 and they can't find their parents in the grocery store? Or in Disneyland? The bigger the space, the worse it is. Because now they can't find them, you can't find them, and now they're just falling out. They don't know what fun is over for them. When a child is separated from their parent, it causes dis-ease. They're uncomfortable. When in the book, they talk about the prodigal son. In the wisdom book, in the Bible, they talk about the prodigal son. The prodigal son was the son of a king, and he said to himself, he said, I wonder what it would feel like to be rich. Like, not under my dad, but I want to do my own thing. This is YOLO out here. I only got a little bit of time. I got to get it cracking. I got a little bread in my pocket. Well, my dad's rich, and I know at some point I'm gonna be able to have my own thing. So why don't I just do my thing now? I ain't mad at him. Do want to be a player, want to be a baller, want to do his thing early in the day, way long time ago, so to speak, right? So he said, I wonder if I go to my dad and I ask him, can I get my thing? Can I get my stuff now? Can I get my inheritance now? I wonder what he'll say. So he went to his dad, and his dad said, okay. He gave him all his stuff. Well, he went out, partied it all up, went to Vegas, did his thing. And at the end of the day, just like The Hangover, like the movie The Hangover, and they woke up and wondered what happened, and they got a tiger and everything else, right? I don't think I laughed that hard in the movie at all. I mean, I remember crying in the movie like that, laughing so hard. But so they woke up in Vegas with a tiger, all in the bathroom and everything else, not knowing what happened. Can't find the other people and all the other stuff. But the point is, look how they ended up. So when he went out, right, he went out to Vegas back in the day, so to speak, and spent up all the inheritance that his father had for him. And where did he end up? He ended up sleeping with the pigs. So he went from a prince to sleeping with the pigs. He went from a prince to sleeping with the pigs. How do you go from a prince to sleeping with the pigs? How did that happen? It happened, this is physical, right? This is what he is, right? And this is how he ended up. So how did he make this transition? He made this transition because the first thing he did was he had a thought. He said in his mind, he said, let me separate. Let me separate from my Father. What that story is trying to tell you is, we learned yesterday, our Father is I am, is God, what people call God. That's why his father was the king. That's why he was the prince. He is an expression, the prince is an expression of the king, just like a child's expression of the parent. So the first thing the prince did is separate itself in his mind. He had an idea in his mind to say, let me go. And that started the whole denigration from starting down from prince to sleeping with the pigs. He went from everything to nothing. In our mind, when we separate when we mentally separate ourselves from ease through poor thought, not being a bad person, not being stupid, not being white or black, man or woman, not being literally in our mind, when we separate ourselves from proper thought. That's what God represents, proper thought, the highest level of thinking. The creator, that's what creates, is thinking. And the higher our level of thought, the greater things we can create. So we call somebody a genius. We're not doing that because they created necessarily, I don't know, a pencil. But back in the day, that might have been if you never had one. But we're calling people genius because they're exhibiting an exceptional level of mental acuity, of thought. Right? That's why they call something, when they say someone is mentally retarded, the word retard means to stop. It means to arrest. So it means their mental development was stopped. It was arrested. Right? So what we're saying here is that anytime we stop or arrest our thought, we retard our advancement. We stop our advancement. When we separate ourselves from our proper thought, we go from the prince all the way down to sleeping with the pigs. So when we separate ourselves from proper thought, dis-ease comes in. Don't you think he felt dis-eased, the prince sleeping with the pigs? I think he probably felt diseased, right? So in order to reattach it, what did he do? Then he had another thought. He said, even the servants, he said, even the servants at my father's house are living better than I'm living. So let me go back, and at least I know I blew all my stack. I know I blew all my bread. Okay, but at least I can go back and get a job as one of the servants, at least, because at least I'll live better than what I'm living now. So he had another thought. He had a thought that took him from the prince all the way down to the pigs. So then he had another thought, like I just said, to say, let me go back and let me see if I can just be a servant at my father's house, because they're living better than I'm living. I can at least do that, I'm sure. So he had a thought to get out. Now he had another thought. So now he's making a U-turn. He's changing his mind. He didn't sit around and cry over it. He didn't sit around and whine over it. I'm sure he felt like crying and whining. He probably cried and whined when he was changing his mind, but he didn't stay crying and whining. He just changed his mind. He decided, I'm going to do something different. That difference is represented in the word metanoia. It's a Greek word, metanoia. We know it as repentance. That word means radical change of mind. He changed his mind. He hit a U-turn. When you're going north and you hit a U-turn, that's a radical change of mind. That's a radical change of direction. You're doing something completely different than what you were just doing. It's a radical change of mind. It's a radical change of action. But that action, radical change, came from the radical thought. So he radically changed his mind. So he separated himself and went from the prince to the king. I mean, from the prince to the pigs, sleeping with the pigs. Then he changed his mind again. So now he's going back up. And now he said, I'm going to go back home. And I'm going to say, hey, Dad, can I at least work for you? No problem. As soon as he did this, the book said the king, right, said the king saw him coming. The king saw him coming from afar off. Saw him coming from afar off. And when he started walking, and when he saw his son coming, he ran out and met him. Now, there's a couple things to realize there. Number one, he saw him coming. How could he see him coming if he wasn't looking? He said he saw him from afar off. So he didn't yell, didn't scream. He said he saw him coming. That means he's looking. Who is the king? Your I amness, your consciousness, your awareness of being. People call it God, but this is what we're talking about. Same thing. Doesn't matter what we call it, right? That your awareness of being is always waiting for you. It's not judging you. It doesn't care what you did. The dad didn't care. The king didn't care what he did. It's always waiting. And if you turn around to come back to connect yourself in consciousness in right thought, if you connect your relationship as prince and king again, right, as mind with proper thought again, it will run out to meet you. It said it ran out and met him and embraced him and said, my son is home, right? My son is home. And then what did he do? If you read the story, you can find it. But if you read the story, he changed the kid's clothes. He put a robe on him. He put the staff back in his hand. He put a ring on his finger. He put shoes on his feet. He basically restored him to his status. The status he had before he separated is a status he was able to restore by reconnecting. That is what he was able to do. So then now he's back. So now he went from the prince when he separated himself to the pigs, and then he went back to the prince when he went back to his father, when he went back to his consciousness with proper thought by saying, no, I'm not stupid. I'm smart. No, I'm not poor. Let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich. No, I'm not that. This is where I am right now, but this is just where I am. It's not who I am. So he realized, even though I'm sleeping with the pigs, I'm still the prince. I'm still related. So let me actually get up out of here and see what I can make work by going back to his father, by attaching himself in consciousness, saying, I'm not weak, I'm strong. I'm not poor, I'm rich. I'm not sick, I'm healthy, right? Attaching himself back to his father allowed him to restore all the things he had, right? The robe, the staff, the shoes, the ring. They were doing pinky rings back then. We think we're doing something new. They were doing the pinky ring back then, right? But saying that to say, all of this was restored to him. When we come back to our conscious mind properly, with proper thought, the king is our mind. It will let you go and do what you want to do. It will let you go and do what you want to do. But if you don't know what you're doing, you'll go from the prince to the pigs, to the outhouse, to the pig house, right? And in order to get out of that, like we talked about earlier in etymology, right? We have to the king can't go out there and be sleeping with him. We can't go down to stay down with people in poor thought. We have to stay where we are and pick them up, because otherwise they'll have nothing to come back to, or no one to come back to. You have to be able to hold the line and say, no, this is proper thought. You may not agree because you don't understand. And that's okay, but you will. A lot of things that, for those of us that are parents, a lot of times our kids don't agree with what we're saying, but a lot of it is not actual disagreement because of just disagreement. A lot of it is because they don't understand certain things, whether it's what we're saying or the responsibility that we have that they don't. So they think they're going to a party and they're able to be responsible. And yeah, you are. But if something happens, they're not going to just call you. They're going to call me. You didn't just get here, I had to drop you off and pick you up, or whatever else it is. So a lot of it is misunderstanding, but they're misunderstanding not the difference of opinion, but the difference in authority and responsibility. So a lot of the people that I work with kids and things like that, a lot of the issues that people are having are misunderstandings, because parents either explain things to justify, and so they're now they put themselves in a weakened position, like they're not sure what they're saying or why they're saying it, or they feel like they don't have to explain anything, it's just do what I said and be quiet. But now the kid either doesn't understand you because you didn't say anything, or they don't know, you're not giving them any information, so then they just feel like you're hating instead of explaining. Explaining is not justifying. You're just saying, hey, I made this decision, and here's why to a certain degree, and I understand you want to do something, but it has to be like this for right now. Some of that is, but they'll understand better when you explain, but you're not justifying, so it doesn't mean you have to change your mind or you have to, or anything like that, but it just allows them to have a little more information for them to go on and grow on, right? So that's kind of a little digression, but so the point is that he came back and all these things were restored. Now, here's the last thing. In that story toward the end, when he came back, he said his brother was there and said, well, he had a brother. There's always more to it. He had a brother. So his brother's sitting right there when his brother came back. His older brother sitting there when his brother came back. And he's like, and so he's sitting there and he's like looking at the dad like, for real? Like this is how this is going? We're really about to give him all this stuff back after he done blew all these stacks and all this bread. And he said, and I've been with you the whole time, and you're going to give him that? Right? This brother, who is that brother? In the thought world, who is that brother?
There's a question in the chat.
Yes.
Marcus wrote, because of his restored mindset, God met him, in parentheses, the father of the son, and gave him back what he was promised for birthright. So it's about making a conscious decision to take responsibility, and then physical action with be created because of mental change.
Yes. The first physical action that he took in the pig pen was to do what, Marcus? Joe, I'm coming to you next. Was to do what, Marcus? Is John? Oh, why do I keep saying John? Oh, because Joe's the first. John. Sorry, John, I'm coming to you next.
I believe it's the first action that he took was a mental action.
Was a mental action. So when people say, oh, you have to take action on your desire, you have to take action on your dream, you got to go out there and yeah, but all action, all physical action is led or driven by thought. First, the first thing he did to get himself in trouble was poor thought. The first thing he had to do to change to get himself out of trouble was change his thought. People look at all the actions, but the actions just happen afterward. The physical disease is afterward. It's not first. So when people are out here getting all kind of therapies and this or that, there's nothing wrong with that. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is people wonder why they get all these therapies and stuff comes back. Because the thought hasn't changed. The thought is what created the physical thing. All physical things, disease of your body, of your mind, of your money, of everything else. This is a keep it real platform. What does your bank account say? Do you know? What does your health say? Do you know? What do your relationships say? Do you know? What does your mental state say? Do you have peace of mind? Are you worried? Are you stressed? Are you anxious? Are you this? Are you that? What does your physical expression say? That's what's going on in your mind. It's a reflection. It's not the creator. It's a reflection of your mind. Now, after a while, it's so habitually trained, it will feel like it's your mind. But it's not. It's just a habit that you have conditioned and strengthened through repetition. So to get in something, this trouble, first started in the mind. to get out of the trouble first started in the mind. Now, John, this brother in the story, who does this brother, when he came home and his dad put all this back on him, and his brother standing right beside his dad, like, for real? This is what we doing? I've been with you the whole time, and you're gonna give this dude back everything he blew? Who is it? Who does his brother represent?
When I think of that,
Say it again.
I'm just trying to put the thought into word.
Okay.
You know, when I think of that, I'm just thinking of trying to a little bit of difficulty putting what I'm thinking into and capturing the exact word with it. I'm just thinking of waste when I'm you know, the main word I'm thinking of is waste of time, waste of talent, waste of energy.
Okay, watch this. So you said waste of time, waste of this or that. What do we, when we get into the pig pen of life, when we do something and we're like, oh God, I done messed myself up real good this time. And we feel kind of hopeless or desperate, or we feel sad, or we feel beat down. What are the things that we say to ourselves?
Maybe next time, or we try to figure out what the faults are. You know, where did we mess up at?
What did you say when I said, what does this brother represent? What did you say? You said he was thinking what?
About, you know, waste in loss of value.
Waste, loss of value. That's what he was thinking, right?
Yes.
So who is he? Who does he represent?
I think our mental capacity sometimes, when we either experience failure or when we think that we're going to fail.
So this brother represents you, just like the prince represents you. He said, why does he get to have everything? And he said, because that's you. You say to yourself, man, I got myself in the pig pen. I got myself into it. Oh man, I didn't waste it. Oh God, why should I be able to go back? That's what this brother represents. He represents the part of yourself that says, I wasted, I did, the part of yourself that wanted you to stay. His brother wasn't happy to see him home. His brother would say, man, my dude, you're back. What's up? Hey man, how was it out there? It's real in them streets, huh? Was it cold out there? No, he was like, he back? For what? And he gets to do what? That is what we say to ourselves when we mess ourselves up. We're that brother. We're the brother that got ourselves, we're the brother that's the prince and got ourselves into this mess. We're the brother we're another part of ourselves that says, I can go back. I can go back. I can change this. I can do something. There's that part of us. Then there's that part of us that kicks in and says, well, it's a waste of time. You didn't wasted all the money. That's what brother said. He wasted everything. Right? But then what did the king say? The king said, and who does the king represent? Consciousness, right? Your I am, your awareness, the thing that is your salvation, the thing that actually can allow you to let go and mess yourself up or come back and clean yourself up. The king said to the brother, he said, son, basically, don't be mad. All that I have is yours. All that I have is yours. The prince is you. The brother is you. The prince is when we decide, like, we get this bright idea, right? That we just gonna be out here thinking whatever we want to separate ourselves from our conscience. Oh, it doesn't really matter if I say I'm stupid or I'm broke or I ain't got it or I ain't really like that or these people don't like me or no, it don't really matter. We're separating ourselves in consciousness from the Father, meaning from truth. We're separating ourselves from the true understanding of something. And that's going to lead us to sleeping with the pigs eventually. Eventually, it's going to catch us. So then, right, that's us. Then we sleep with the pigs, we decide to come back. And as soon as we decide to reattach ourselves in consciousness with the right thought, now the king sees us from afar off and runs out to embrace us. It only is happy to see us. It ain't hating. It ain't saying, why'd you back? You learned your lesson, didn't you? Yeah, I told you. Well, I don't really know if there's anything left because you didn't spend all your stack. It didn't say that. The king said, I'm happy to see you home. Man, put all this stuff back on. You popping the most again. You back. You're back. But now you got your brother. Now you got the part of yourself that's saying, yeah, but man, look what I did and look how much I wasted and what are people gonna say? And right, and yeah, I mean, these are things we say to ourselves. These are things we say to ourselves every day. What we're talking about here is a lifestyle. It's a way of thinking. It's a level of understanding of thought in order to be able to live, because these are the thoughts that we have in our human mind through our human experience. When we get our toes stepped on, when we slip in the mud. I went out there, I used to live with Marcus for like a year out there in DC when he graduated from Howard, and he was living out in Maryland. And I went out there to live with him because I was trying to find myself, figure out what I wanted to do and stuff like that. So man, I went out to Virginia, went on this job interview. Man, I stepped out the office and slipped on some ice. Listen, I landed on my elbow. I was so hurt, I called my mom. I was like, Mom, oh, I'm coming home. I can't take it. I mean, I fell all out and everything. Didn't even get the job. And guess what? The job was for a pet exterminator. Orkin. I couldn't even get out of there. They didn't even want me, right? So I slipped on some ice, fell all on myself, on my elbow. I'm holding my ice back on the train back to DC. No job, cold. My whole side was wet. You guys are out there in the East Coast, whole side was wet. Elbow hurt. Ain't no ice around. I'm dressed up, cold, wet, hurt, no job, on the train back, like an hour back. Right? There's some people around me who are laughing that I don't appreciate it, but we'll talk about that offline. Right? So, but right? So this happens. That's what this story is about. It's about us. It's about you. It's about me. We are that prince. We are that. That's who we really are. But if we decide to let go of our Father, of our righteous mind, of our right thinking mind, we will now end up in the pig pen. That's what happens. Whether that's of disease, of poverty, of relationships, of whatever else it is. But we always have the ability to now create a new thought, to free ourselves. And if we do that, the Father comes running out and says, hey, I'm you back. Restore him to who he was, the prince. He didn't get demoted. Well, you used to be, but now I gave that role to your cousin. So I don't know what you're going to do now, but you can come chill, but you can, all that prince stuff, you can forget that. That's not what it said. He said, I'm happy to see you. But restore all of his stuff. You can be restored to what you want to be, but you have to reconnect to your Father. You have to go home to your righteous mind, to right thinking, right? So then when we do that, so we're like, okay, good. I'm so glad to be back. Then the brother standing right there like, well, I don't really know. I mean, why does he get to do? We start thinking that inside, like, well, I made this mistake, and I know everybody said they're happy to see me, but I don't really know. And I think so and so looked at me. She didn't really wave like she used to, and we're the brother, because in our mind we think of waste and loss of value, but the Father didn't. The power didn't.
In the chat, Marcus asked, Father represents forgiveness as well, so we must forgive ourselves.
Yes, the Father represents forgiveness because the Father loves you so much, he allows you to be you. That's what free will is. When people talk about free will, the Father loves you so much, your conscious, your awareness of being loves you so much that it allows you to have all the experiences, because that's truly that's you. Your Father is you. The King is you too. All of these people are you. They're just different personifications of mind. They're different levels of thinking, different directions of thinking, but they're all you. Your consciousness, which you call God, gives you free will. It allows you. That's why we have killing and wars. But what did it say last week when we read it? It says, I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. I am God, and there is no other to save you out of my hand. Nothing is going to save you what you believe you are. When you say I am, which is what we're saying all the time, that is a belief about yourself. That is a story you have. That is a way of thinking about yourself that you have. And that is what's creating, meaning that is what is driving you to everything that already exists. It's driving you to this. When you go to a grocery store and you're going down an aisle, when you go to the grocery store, you go down the aisles based on what you want to pick. According to your consciousness, everything in the grocery store already exists. But you're going down the aisles based on what you're looking to say, okay, bread is over here, tomatoes are on the outside, and fruit and vegetables are always on the outside. The closer you go in the aisles, the cheaper the food is, quality of the food is generally. Fresh vegetables and everything are always on the outside. That's a whole another situation. But the point of saying all that to say is you go to the store where everything is already made. Creation is already finished. So now we are going to the grocery store of life to pick our experiences based on our consciousness, based on what we want to experience. We want to experience pasta and spaghetti. We go to that aisle. God doesn't stop you from doing that. If you want to experience cancer and diabetes, you go to that aisle. God don't stop you from doing that. They're both thoughts. But to God, it doesn't matter, because God knows, your true self knows it can't die. The body may, but it can't. So this is like a scrimmage in a sport. Yeah, we playing it for real. You're out there playing, but this is not something you can lose. This is something that you're here to do. So it'll let you experience anything. That's you. The King is you. So it doesn't have a grudge against you. Why would it? It's not human in that sense. It's not mankind in that sense. It's a personification of it. The King is your consciousness. It's the highest level of power in the environment. And it's in the story. That's why it's the King. And the prince is an expression of that. Right? So yes, we can separate ourselves in our mind and become the prince and say, okay, I'm going to do these things. And now I end up like this. Now I'm going to go back to reconnecting my mind. Right? And now I'm on again. It doesn't matter. The electricity doesn't care if you unplug your phone and then plug it back in. That's just the way it works. It doesn't have any grudge. It's there for that. Your consciousness is just there for you to use. And so your consciousness is just I am. Now, what you want to buy or experience, you attach to it. Your cell phone, you attach it to it. Wealth, you attach it to it. Sickness, you attach it to it. Health, you attach it to it by proclaiming yourself to be. What we are here to facilitate in thought is to do this proactively. I am healthy. Instead of waking up feeling sick, and then the only time we consciously say we say, oh, hey girl, what you doing? What's going on? Oh, girl, I am sick. We're saying this after we feel ourselves to be something. But the only way this came is because this is what we were saying before. It now just came. But what we're trying to do is say, instead of saying this second, we want to condition our mind, strengthen and condition our mind to always be feeling ourselves to be healthy. If that's all the King says, if that's all the King declares and decree, there is nothing else that can happen. There's no greater power. There's no greater power in that story than the King. That's why the King could make all the decisions. The son couldn't decide what it was. Only the King could decide if it could come back. The brother could hate all that he wanted, but even he had no say. The King, the highest level of authority, is the only say in the world, in your world. So I am is the highest level of authority in our world. And whatever we attach to it is going to stand, whether it's going to come in and move out all the other stuff, whether it's going to keep what's there, or whether it's going to bring you to something. But most people don't ever consciously, we're always saying I am. It doesn't have to be verbally, in thought, we're always believing ourselves to be. So what we're trying to do is understand that so we can do it consciously, so we can pick what that belief is. A belief isn't just verbal. We're not walking around saying, I am black, I am black, I am man, I am man. No, we know ourselves to be a man, or know ourselves to be black or white or a woman or young or old. We're always aware of what we are. But what we're trying to get across is that whatever that awareness is what creates what we are. We're just expressing what's created, but just because we're expressing it, that's not where it started. What we're aware of being, our awareness is what creates what we say. So, oh, don't say that. Yeah, don't say that. But more importantly, don't think that. If you don't think that, you won't say it. See, now sometimes people drink too much and they get drunk and then they say some things. Oh, I didn't really mean that. The next morning, be like, well, if it wasn't in there, you couldn't have said it. You didn't get drunk and say you were George Bush. You didn't say that. So you saying you can say that and it doesn't count, but you can say that and it, like, you can't be like, no, you said something that was in there. Right? So what we're trying to do is if we are sick, it's because it's in there, but it's expressed in our mind. Remember, our body's not creative, it's only expressive. So we're saying what's in our mind. And that's why we say I'm sick. But we're not always saying it in words. We're just aware of being. That's the only way it happens. So what we're trying to do is clean that up, throw it out. The king is the only say. God is the only say. I am is the only say. So whatever we attach to that consciously on purpose is what is going to happen. We're doing this no matter what. I said on purpose, consciously thinking, turn the light on. So we're not stumbling around saying anything, thinking anything, listening to anything, listen to everybody. Yeah, girl, you know there's a recession. Girl, you heard that too on the news? Yeah, girl, it's hard. Girl, you better save your money, girl, because you know these gas prices are getting high and this or that. Look what we're saying. Look what we're serving up. Look what we're cooking. And it starts to smell in life. It starts to become a part of your house. Right? It becomes a part of your house, your temple. What did it say? Don't you know that your body is the temple of the living God? Yeah, of the living God. I am is living. Nobody dead saying it. I am is living. The living God is I am, consciousness. And your body is the temple, the thing in which it resides. Right? So that's why it doesn't have any grudges. It doesn't care about that. Humanity cares about that. That's red-handed. Red-handed. Right? I was having this conversation yesterday and somebody brought it up to me. Well, actually, Veronica brought it up. And we were talking about how as you start to really train your mind, almost like when you clean your house, you start to become aware of all the things that are out of place, dirty, out of order, should be thrown out. And so when you're living, you start to become more aware of thoughts. And you catch it. And you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Where'd that come from? How did that happen? Wait a minute, hold on. That's not going to work, because if I take that thought, if I let that in my house, that's not going to work out. Right? Red-handed. We caught a thought before it got out of control, before it became something that became expressed in our world. That is the game. That is the hardest thing to do, is to control your mind, to choose your mind, to discipline your mind. Right? That's where that word disciple comes from. Those words mean the same thing: discipline, disciple. It means to teach every day. In the book, Jesus was with the disciples every day. As soon as he got off and running, he went and got some disciples. Before he even started talking to people, he got some disciples. So before you start talking, you need to get some disciplines. You need to have some levels and orders of thought. We just out here talking with no discipline. That's why the 12 disciples they all have names, and all their names mean something. There are 12 disciplines of mind. There are 12 personalities. They have different ways of seeing the world. There's a great two people talk about that. Rev Ike. If you look him up on YouTube, guy named Rev Ike. We'll put that in the chat. named Rev Ike and Neville Goddard. He talks about the 12 disciples, and they mean a whole lot more than people realize. But that's one of the things they are different personality types, right? But Jesus went and got them before he started running his mouth talking to everybody. You have to have disciplines before you start talking to everybody. Otherwise, people are not going to listen to you. Otherwise, you're not going to have the help and support of all these different aspects of mind, of all these different hands and feet, so to speak, of all this different ability that you're using to do what you do. Right? So that's what we're talking about. So what humans do is not what God does. Humans are into forgiveness and into not forgiveness and into good and bad and right and wrong. That's not what God is into. That's not what the highest level of mind is into. It's into saying, okay, you had a thought. The highest level of mind is thought and outcome. That's all it deals with. What am I thinking in order to experience or to express something, to create? Because God is the creator. If God don't create it, it doesn't exist. So that's all God is thinking about, is what it wants to create. That's you. I am is just thinking about what it wants to create by believing itself to be. It doesn't go into all that. So this is you every day. All of us on this call, in the world, doesn't matter. This is all we are. It's all you'll ever be. It's all we'll ever be. That's it. The only thing now is, what do we want to power this? What do we want this to power in our physical experience? Wealth, health, happiness, right? You can pick. Some people pick sickness, right? It doesn't care what you pick. It's the Father. It will let you go out and blow all your bread, right? It doesn't care. What is it? That's what I done. Right? It doesn't care. So when you do that, it's going, when you say, I am this, I am that, I am this, that is what you are proclaiming yourself to be. If this is all that's in your mind, this is all that's going to be expressed. This is only expressing everything you put under it or attached to it. Yes.
What about mental? What about mental being on that list? What about mental, or your mental state, or your...
Yes. So what do you want that mental state to be? You're the creator. What do you want that to be? What does it say in the book? This person said in the book, I have not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Sound mind, whole mind, complete mind, peace of mind. That's the option you have. But what do most people pick? I am worried. I wrote it small for a reason. Stressed, anxious, afraid. So yes, you can pick anything you want. This is what it said. I have not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a soundness of mind. It said, be anxious for nothing. It says, it didn't say anxiety didn't exist. It said, be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God will guard your heart and mind. So at the highest level of thought, this is what's operating. In our humanity, we can choose something else. At the highest level of thought, we're the king, but we can decide to be the prince sleeping with the pigs. This worry, stress, fear, anxiety, all that stuff is sleeping with the pigs. That's it. With pigs. That's it. There ain't no hate in that. There ain't no judgment in it. The Father didn't go out there and be like, I saw you out there on camera. Didn't say any of that. But it is what happens when you separate yourself in mind. This is what happens when you have your mind attached. Soundness, wholeness, peace, completeness. And that's what is your mental state. So yes, absolutely. Pick it. This is all your experience. A mind, peace is just an experience. Wealth is just an experience. Health is just an experience. Happiness is an experience. Power is an experience. Love is an experience. You get to choose them all in your right mind. So we have about 2 more minutes in the interest of time. That was a great question, and I want to just open it up real quick to see if we have any more before, I let you guys go and we move on to the last little bit of a couple little announcements and things like that.
In the story you use, basically showing, about the prince and, him, the conditions that he and the things he went through,
Yes,
seeing
sir.
hardship, and then, experiencing, things, the good side and the bad side of the coin.
Yes, sir.
What about the times in life when sometimes, we get off track? So bad things or something has to happen to get us back on track. I mean, similar to this story, or more so, sometimes, okay, you can get going in a good direction with the positivity and all those things, but you might get too confident or get too high and mighty, and then get derailed and have to get reset, or something has to knock you back on course.
Who can knock God back on course? The old school God up in the sky that we all, pray to and all this. Who can knock God back on course?
Well, God keeps us on course.
Well, no,
So
but
God,
I'm
God,
saying, yeah, but who can knock God off course?
I would say no one, if God is all willing and all omniscient.
Okay. So you just said no one, right? So in the book, God's name is this. So that means God can't be knocked off course, but like the prince, God can go off course. God can go off course. So when we say we got knocked off course, there's no one to knock us off course but ourselves. When someone says something to us, we can hear it. It doesn't mean we have to believe it. When we have a thought, it can cross our mind. We don't have to internalize it and act on it. No one can knock us off course. We can go off course. Who knocked the prince off course? Who made him think, I'm going to separate my stuff from my father? No one. He made that decision. Now, he made that decision and he was unaware that decision would lead him to pigs, but he still made the decision. So decision wasn't a punishment. It was an outcome of thought. Disease is not a punishment. It's an outcome of thought. It's a reflection. Sleeping with the pigs is not a punishment. It's a reflection. It's showing you who you are or what you're thinking, because who you are is your thought and feelings. That's what consciousness is, right? In the sense of like, what are you entertaining? So no one can knock us off. That's why what did it say last week? No man takes my life from me. Nothing external happened to us. The external is an expression of us. We can get lost. We drive in the car and we get lost. Who got us lost? We did. We just didn't know better. But no one got us lost. We just got lost, but we're still lost. So in order to be found, right, we have to get somebody has to have some different information. So we may ask somebody, or we may stop and look on our map, or decide to use our navigation now. Right? But the point is, like the prince, the prince is us. We got ourselves lost. The king is us. We'll allow the prince, the consciousness will allow us, the physical expression, to go out and do what it does. But if the physical expression went out and did what it did and slept with the pigs and now decides to come back home to consciousness, there's no judgment here. There's no, the prince didn't get knocked off course. The prince made a decision that had an outcome that maybe he wasn't aware was going to happen, but he still made the choice. So the outcome is a reflection of his choice. It's not a reflection of somebody taking something from him, or him getting his king, his princeship getting taken from him, or him getting demoted, or his dad became bankrupt. Nothing happened to any of them. Everyone just made decisions. We're making decisions based on what we're believing ourselves to be. And most of us don't make these decisions. We make these decisions. Because the worry, stress, anxiety, fear, sleeping with the pigs decisions are what are most common. So then that's why people drink, smoke, entertain themselves. They do all kind of things. Sigmund Freud said, life is often too hard for us. So we resort to palliative measures: drinking, smoking, drugs and alcohol, sex and entertainment. It means we do them not because they're right or wrong, but we do them at all costs because they're palliative measures. They're numbing measures. The things we do to distract ourselves from the pain of life, from sleeping with the pigs, from the outcomes of poor thought when we detach ourselves from proper thought, right? So there's no one to knock us off course. That's why we're here. It's because we are saying this is who we are. And if the objective God that we say, well, no one can knock God off course. If God is saying, my name is I am, and you and I and all of us have to say, I am, then we're saying we're the same being. That's what the book is trying to tell you. Tell me, tell us, we are this being. Now it's using all these different characters, all the disciples, Jesus, the king, the prince, all these stories. It's using to say how life goes and how we get in certain situations, how we got there, what we do when we get there, how we get back, what happens when we got back. That's why the brother was in the story, because that's also a part of us to say, yeah, we changed our mind, and yeah, we made a mistake, and we changed our mind, but there's that part of us that doesn't want to forgive ourselves. That says, oh man, we wasted. Look how much time you wasted. Look how much this. And we think it's somebody else. But a lot of times we can say it to ourselves, or because we feel that someone else says it to us, but they're only saying what we're saying to ourselves. Self-talk just doesn't always have to be expressed from us. It can be expressed through people to us. They're only telling us what we think, what we feel and believe ourselves to be. Right? So there is no one to knock us off course. That's why we're here. We are not victims. We are victors. It says we have the victory in all things through Christ Jesus, through the representation of anointed thought, meaning I and my Father are one. Right? So when John says, I am John. John is who you are. I mean, I am is who you are. John is what you're putting yourself into being. So John and I am are one. So whatever I am is believing itself to be is going to be expressed through John. So if you want to know what you're thinking, take a look at yourself. If you want to know what you're thinking, take a look at every area of your life. That's what you're thinking. That's what you think about money. That's what you think about health. That's what you think about relationships. That's what you think about employment. That's what you think about. That's what you're thinking. Now, just like that son, like that prince, if you're in the pig pen, change your thought. Before he changed his thought, he was a prince. So he was living well until he changed his thought. Well, he was living poorly until he changed his thought. Thought is what puts us where we are. Nobody knocks us off. It's our thought that puts us where we are. It puts us in a position to be victimized, right? The pigs didn't knock us off any more than people knock us off. We're just with them now. So that's a great question. And I hope I answered it sufficiently for you. All right, man, it's 7:06. I mean, I love all the questions. I just don't want to hold other people up and things like that. Is there any other question before we go? I don't want to cut people all the way off. Just want to be mindful. So, but great questions. And hopefully, just these 2 weekends really kind of opened up our eyes to some things for us to think about and to really realize that it's really this simple. It's hard to believe it's this simple. And it's because we've been conditioned otherwise. It's not because we're crazy, not because we're stupid or weird or wrong. It's because we think all of this. We think all of these things. We think all of these things, all of this and all of this. We think that makes this. That makes us what we are. No, it's what we are that makes us this. So if we are something and these are what we are, that's what we'll go to. If this is what we are, that's what we'll go to. These are just items in a grocery store. What we are is why we decide what we buy from the store or not. Nobody knocks us off. Nobody makes us pay for something we don't want. Otherwise, we file the charges, right? There's nothing that happens without this starting it. So we don't have to worry about this. If we condition this, if we choose who this is, we'll only, because of who we are, we only go down these aisles. And if we don't like what we're buying, we put it back. If we don't like what we're buying, worry, stress, fear, put it back. Put it back. Okay. Thank you all for coming. I've seen most of the names. I recognize you guys. So you've been here for both weeks. So thank you guys for coming. We have in the chat, we're going to put the website up that you guys kind of inspired me to develop. Because I've like I said, I've been doing this for a while now, and never had a website, business cards, never. It's all been word of mouth, and so I've worked with tons of people and all kind of other stuff, but I never had a website, business card. It just didn't come from that. It wasn't original business for me. It was just something that I wanted to learn for myself to use, and then people started asking me questions, and then that's how I got into it. So anyway, I never went formal with it, I guess you could say, even though it's what I do. But now there's a website up just with some more information and stuff like that. That link is in the chat, as well as some other information and stuff like that. We are going to try to keep these going as much as we can. Sundays, we're going to have to drop Sundays for now, just because we already had some obligations and things like that I wasn't able to move or change and stuff like that. So we're going to right now just keep it for Saturdays. We'll get back on Saturdays. If we can do during the week a question and answer or something, we'll send out some information to anybody who's interested. But there's a lot of information on the site now and stuff like that. Just, there's wisdom shots on there. There's audio that you can listen to. There's a lot of, things, and more things will be coming, book recommendations and stuff for people to be able to hear, and stuff like that. But like I said, I have some other things now that, that I couldn't move around. I already had previous obligations for classes and just all my daily stuff that I'm doing. So, so we're going to just make it Saturdays right now, but same time, we'll still keep it at the same time for now. We may move that too, but right now we'll try to keep as much of it as we can, as consistent as we can. But I definitely enjoy you guys. Thank you for listening. Hopefully it helped. And if you have any questions, like I said, on the site, you can reach out and stuff like that. And there's plenty of information to listen to and digest and things like that. Also, all of our recommendations for books and things like that for you to read, people to listen to, stuff like that as well, to continue your growth in education. Because like, I've always said, it's not about me, it's about the information. And the more the information you can get, and the more, not in volume, but if you can hear from a couple different people, everybody hears different people differently. So there may be people that you link to more. So Reverend Ike is great. Neville Goddard is great. Dr. Joseph Murphy is great. Bruce Lipton is great. Dr. Joe Dispenza is great. There's some, those are really, really good things for you to be able to listen to the mind and how it works. That's, really good resources for you guys to be able to use and see. Right. So, thank you all again. We really appreciate it. And, we look forward to seeing you guys next Saturday. And, that's our time.
So when they can register, so they can get the email notifications and the links.
Yeah. And if you register, if you go on the site and you register, it'll allow you to get the notifications for Saturday. And stuff like that, reminders just for people. Don't worry, it ain't selling you nothing. And this has been going on a long time, so this is not some kind of new thing. So but it's just something for you to be able to get notifications, so that you guys don't have to remember or things like that, right? So, but thank you all. I appreciate it. It was great to spend time with you all. Great to hear you and things like that. And I appreciate you coming. Thank you. And like I said, if you have any other questions or anything, the site is up, and you guys will be able to get access to it, look at it, see it, whatever, and then we'll go from there. So otherwise, we'll see you maybe this week, maybe Q&A. I'm not sure yet, but definitely Saturday. So we'll let you know about Wednesday, but definitely Saturday we'll do it again, and we'll just kind of keep it as Saturdays for right now until or unless some other time opens back up. So all right, thank you all. We appreciate it. We'll let you go, and thank you all for everything.